Here's the thing about Social Security. Age 62 might be the biggest trap in retirement, or the smartest move you'll ever make. That's the problem. Everyone has an opinion. Reddit has an opinion. Financial advisors have an opinion. Your neighbor who retired 3 years ago definitely has an opinion. And most of them treat this decision like it has one clean answer. It doesn't. Because the question is not just, do I want a smaller check now or a bigger check later? The real question is, how do I get the most value out of a system I paid into for decades in a life where I do not know how long I'll live, what the market will do, what happens to my spouse, or what my health looks like 5 years from now? That's the real decision. And today, I'm going to show you 7 times filing for Social Security at 62 actually makes sense. Not because 62 is always right, because the math is messier than people admit. For some of you, waiting until 70 is absolutely the best move. For others, it quietly destroys value. And the worst part is this. A lot of people are getting pushed toward a one-size-fits-all answer on one of the biggest financial decisions of their lives. So let's make this simple. I want you to think about Social Security like a faucet. Behind the wall is a pressurized pipe. Every year you wait, the pressure builds. At 70, the pressure is highest, so the monthly check is biggest. Sounds great, but there's a catch. The faucet belongs to you. You paid for it your entire working life. And if you wait too long to turn it on, some of that value dies with you. Nobody sends you a refund for the years you never collected. That's the whole game. Do you turn the faucet on earlier and collect longer? Or do you wait, build pressure, and hope you live long enough for the bigger stream to pay off? That depends on a lot more than people think. Let's build the model. Take someone I'll call Pat. Pat has 3 options. At 62, Pat can file and collect about $2,238 a month. At full retirement age, around 67 for many people watching this, Pat gets about $3,198 a month. At 70, Pat gets about $3,966 a month. So the usual break-even analysis says, file early, get less money each month for more years. Wait longer, get more money each month for fewer years. Simple. Except it isn't. Because that entire model rests on one variable nobody knows: your death date. And that changes everything. A lot of people casually think, average life expectancy is around the late 70s, so I should probably file early. That logic is sloppy. Because once you've already made it to 62, your expected remaining lifespan is longer than life expectancy at birth. That means many people are using the wrong starting assumption before they even touch the math. And here's where it gets interesting. Move your lifespan assumption by just a few years, and the best strategy can flip completely. 3 years one way, early filing looks smart. 3 years the other way, waiting looks better. So the decision is already unstable. Now add the next layer: inflation adjustments. This is where a lot of break-even analysis goes off the rails. People compare today's monthly checks as if those numbers stay frozen forever. They don't. Social Security gets cost of living adjustments, and a bigger starting benefit means bigger inflation adjustments later, because the increase compounds on a larger base. A 3% increase on a large benefit is a very different world from 3% on a much smaller one. So now the decision isn't just about lifespan. It's lifespan, inflation, compounding, taxes, spousal coordination, market conditions, and your ability to actually use the money while you're alive. That's why the lazy advice gets so many people in trouble. So let's go through the 7 times filing at 62 actually makes logical sense. 1. Your health is bad, or your family history is ugly. This is the most obvious case, and still one of the most important. If the men in your family tend to die in their early 70s, and you've already had a cardiac event, waiting for a bigger check can be a terrible bet. A larger monthly benefit helps only if you're around long enough to collect it. That's the part people dance around because it sounds dark. It is dark. It's also real. If your odds of a shorter retirement are meaningfully higher than average, filing early can be the rational move. In faucet terms, if the pipe may stop working earlier than expected, you open it sooner. 2. You want to use the money while your body still works. People love to treat this as soft, emotional reasoning. It isn't. Retirement spending usually follows a curve. The early years are active: travel, movement, experiences, energy. Then the pace slows down. Eventually, a lot of late life spending goes toward care, medicine, or basic living. That means $1 at 63 and $1 at 83 do not create the same life, even if the dollar amount is identical. Timing matters. You can delay your benefits perfectly and still lose the ability to enjoy the life those benefits were supposed to support. That happens all the time. People optimize for a bigger check and quietly forget what the check is for. 3. Filing early unlocks spousal benefits. This is where the conversation stops being individual and becomes strategic. If your spouse has a much smaller Social Security benefit or barely qualifies on their own record, your filing decision can affect their access to income. That means delaying may also delay money coming into the household. And household cash flow matters more than theoretical optimization on one person's spreadsheet. A lot of couples get bad advice here because they're shown one benefit in isolation. That misses the point completely. For married people, Social Security is often a coordination problem. One spouse filing earlier can unlock income the household would otherwise leave sitting on the table. 4. Your spouse is the higher earner and has a serious diagnosis. This one is counterintuitive, and financially it can be huge. Let's say your spouse has the bigger benefit and also has a serious health condition. If they die first, you may later step into that larger survivor benefit. So what's the smart move? In many cases, you file for your own smaller benefit at 62. You collect that while your spouse is alive. Then, if your spouse passes away, you switch to the larger survivor benefit. That means you collect real money during those intervening years instead of collecting nothing. In some households, that difference is massive. This is one of the clearest cases where early filing can be the right move, even when standard advice says to wait. 5. The stock market crashes right as you retire. This one is underrated. Let's say you retire and the market drops 40%. Now what? If you're funding retirement from your portfolio, you may be forced to sell assets at ugly prices just to cover living expenses. That is one of the fastest ways to damage a retirement plan. This is sequence of returns risk, and it's brutal. In that environment, filing for Social Security early can act like a pressure release valve. It gives you an income floor. It reduces forced selling. It buys time for your portfolio to recover. That's smart. You are not giving up upside. You are buying flexibility when flexibility matters most. And there's a second version of this. If the market crashes and you have enough strength elsewhere, early Social Security can cover part of your living expenses while you leave the portfolio alone, or even keep buying while assets are discounted. That's a very different game from panic selling into a downturn. 6. Taxes make early filing more attractive. This is where people get lazy because they look only at benefit size. Wrong lens. You need to look at after-tax income. Maybe you're in a temporary low-income window. Maybe you retired early. Maybe required minimum distributions haven't started yet. Maybe your tax picture is lighter now than it will be later. In that case, filing earlier may allow you to collect Social Security during a more favorable tax period. Years later, once distributions from traditional retirement accounts start pushing income higher, the tax environment can change. So for some people, early filing is part of a tax management strategy. This is one reason generic advice is so dangerous. The same filing age can be brilliant for one household and mediocre for another. 7. You need the money. This one is simple. Life goes sideways. Medical bills happen. Jobs disappear. Businesses fail. Family members need support. Plans break. Social Security exists to provide foundational income. Using it when you need it is not some embarrassing fallback. That is literally what the system is there for. A lot of people feel shame around this decision. They shouldn't. There is no prize for struggling while a benefit you paid into for decades sits untouched. If filing at 62 stabilizes your life, protects your home, lowers financial stress, or stops you from making worse decisions elsewhere, that is a rational use of the system. Now, let's make this real. Take Sandra. Sandra is 62. She recently retired. Her husband is older, has the larger Social Security benefit, and has a serious heart condition. Sandra can wait and get a bigger monthly benefit later. Sounds good. But if her husband dies a few years down the line, Sandra may switch to the survivor benefit anyway. So what happens if she waited? She may have spent years collecting nothing, only to step into the survivor benefit later regardless. If she files at 62 instead, she could collect years of real income that otherwise disappear forever. That's the kind of case where blanket advice fails. The household structure matters more than the slogan. Now, to be fair, delaying can still be the best move in a lot of cases. If you're healthy, financially secure, likely to live a long time, and not facing pressure from taxes or portfolio withdrawals, waiting can be extremely powerful. A larger, inflation-adjusted guaranteed benefit later in life is a serious asset. So what's the answer? Here's the answer. The wrong question is, should I file at 62? The right question is, which forces in my life make early filing stronger or weaker? That's the real framework. Because this is not a morality play. It's not about discipline. It's not about patience for its own sake. It's not about copying what worked for someone else. It's a decision under uncertainty. And once you see it that way, the whole conversation changes. So here are the 3 takeaways. First, run the break-even math with multiple lifespan assumptions. Do not use one neat estimate and call it a day. Shift the numbers a few years in both directions and see how fragile the answer is. Second, if you're married, stop looking at Social Security one person at a time. Model the household. Spousal benefits matter. Survivor benefits matter. One filing decision changes the other person's outcome. Third, revisit the plan when life changes. A health event, a spouse's diagnosis, a market crash, a low-income year. These are not side notes. These are the exact moments when your filing strategy may need to change. Because Social Security timing is not about finding one magical age. It's about matching the system to the life you actually have. And for some people, that age is 70. For some, it's 67. And for some, 62 is not a trap at all. It's the smartest move available.